everybody. Like to recognize our new council member, Ms. Meredith Turner, I believe, correct? Thank you for joining. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Monday, November 29th Board of Control meeting. It is 11:02. Nan Baker. Here. Dale Miller.
Here.
Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones.
Here.
Melanie Say serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. Here. Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Shankita Walker serving as an alternate for Catherine Takachik.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Hey, at this time, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 22nd. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment. Let's move on to our first item, please.
First item, BC 2021-684, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Cleveland Rocks, past, present, future, in the amount of $5,000 for operating support to examine the viability of economic development growth in the music business in connection with the rehabilitation of Slovenian Workmen's Home located at 15335 Waterloo Road, Cleveland, for the period November 22nd, 2021 through December 31st, 2022, and recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. Paul Hertig with the Department of Development. The nonprofit we're proposing to give the funding to is affiliated with Cindy Barber, the owner of the Beachland Ballroom on Waterloo in the Collinwood neighborhood of Cleveland. I think most people are familiar. Cindy's been one of the leaders in the Waterloo Arts District, keeping that together and keeping it going. She approached the Department of Development recently. They're looking at a potential development project to take over this old building, the Slovenian Workmen's Home, which has potential to be fixed up as a new performing venue. There are some concerns about the condition of the building, and so in the interest of helping with pre-development, we're proposing to give a small operating support grant to the nonprofit. The money will be used for an inspection of the building, which will help to determine the feasibility, the cost to repair it, put it back in condition. We're also separately providing some technical assistance through a contract we have with the National Development Council. We do anticipate, if the project goes forward, we will of course be looking for the City of Cleveland to participate along with us, and our major participation, if any, would be in the form of a loan. So we do not intend to give further grants. This is simply to get them started.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there questions from the board members on this item?
I have a question.
Councilman Miller, please.
Is the building currently vacant?
It's my understanding Slovenian Workmen's Home is vacant. Yes, sir.
Councilwoman,
And specifically, in your answer, it is for the inspection.
It
So will
is.
you follow up to make sure that those dollars were used for the inspection, or do we just,
We certainly will.
okay?
And as we expect to be asked for considerably more money going forward, we will certainly be making sure the little bit we give now was used as expected.
Okay, and I hear you say any additional dollars that may come from this will be as a loan?
We would expect it would come as a normal economic development loan through our normal review system.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Mackler, sir?
So Paul, just to confirm, right, the plan right now is only one-time operating support, right?
Correct.
Not ongoing, okay.
Not ongoing.
And then will we have, since we're paying for the inspection, is there anything in the agreement that would allow us access to the inspection report?
We will certainly insist on that. Again, we have considerable leverage here because they know they can't do the project without capital, and they know that they'll be coming to us for capital, so we most certainly have leverage.
And I know it's a small dollar amount, but was there any consideration of potentially utilizing our Public Works Department to potentially perform the task or oversee it in terms of, or would it cost us
Right.
about the same?
Honestly, no, we did not look into that.
Okay, are there additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-685, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Greater Cleveland Partnership in the amount of $5,000 for operating support for the Cuyahoga County Community Improvement Corporation for the period June 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and recommending the payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Thanks. Paul Hurd again for the Department of Development. There's a little bit of history here. We were approached about 2 years ago by Greater Cleveland Partnership. They asked us to start giving them a pretty significant amount of money every year, $35,000 a year, to continue to administer the county's Community Improvement Corporation. The reason they came to us was the Community Improvement Corporation had run out of money. It originally made some money issuing tax-exempt industrial revenue bonds, and the bond fees from those bonds had been sufficient for many years to cover the staff costs and the other expenses like audit and accounting that Greater Cleveland Partnership was using to administer the CIC. We told them we weren't sure. We did come and got approval from this body for 1 year of support at $35,000. We then continued our discussions and determined we really could handle this in-house. So we've made arrangements, and in fact, the files are actually back here. Our economic development staff handles the administration of the Community Improvement Corporation. This is feasible because there's no longer any money changing hands. The CIC is no longer issuing bonds. So as part of this transfer, we agreed with our colleagues at GCP we would see if there'd be ability to help cover some of their final costs this year. And they do have some out-of-pocket costs. They paid for a final audit. They paid for some accounting work. And so we'd like to give them $5,000 operating support to cover those costs. Again, this is the end of it. We are not going to be paying them any further.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the board on this item?
Question.
Councilman Miller.
My question is, why are they no longer issuing bonds?
Councilman, it has to do with the interest rate environment mainly, and also with the fact that it's a kind of a specialized bond that is only for certain kinds of projects. But it's mainly, honestly, the interest rates.
Interest rates being too low?
They're too low.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Mackler, sir?
So Paul, moving forward, the county will be responsible for, in essence, the administrative work in terms of the meetings, clerking the meetings, issuing the agendas, minutes, and everything. We're no longer going to use GCP.
That's correct, Trevor. Our staff will handle that. And I should add, in the future, because the Community Improvement Corporation does have additional powers, if it be a situation where we thought it ought to, once again, be issuing bonds, doing anything else, we'd make sure we had the appropriate resources for that, which could involve contracting for outside support once again.
But even to your point, right, if we wanted to use them to issue bonds, we're still going to handle the administrative stuff now moving forward on our side?
We would review that and make sure we're doing it the proper way. Just as any other time the county is issuer of tax-exempt bonds, we'd make sure we're doing everything properly.
Okay, any final questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mackler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-686, Department of Development, recommending an award and enter into a contract with Community Housing Solutions in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for emergency furnace repair and knob and tube electrical replacement services to income-eligible urban county residents for the period October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2023.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. This contract was competitively bid, with Community Housing Solutions being the only entity to provide a proposal. They have been providing emergency furnace repair for us for a number of years using community development block grant funds. In addition, a couple of years ago, we added the replacement of knob and tube wiring to the contract because a lot of people could not get approved for, I think it's the HEAP program, if they had knob and tube. So we are allowing that as well. And this program allows, especially during this time of year, people that have emergency furnace issues that need repair or replacement, Community Housing Solutions can do that for them.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there questions from the board on this item?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
The The agenda says 15-2 suggesting 2 bids were received, but you said only 1
There
bid
was
was
only one.
received. Can you clarify? Is this an error, what we're reading here on this?
I'll double check, but to my knowledge, there was only one.
I can
I'll
check that when I
Sharon.
get back, and
Yeah.
I'll send an email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions on the item? Yes, Councilwoman Baker.
Just curious if that is totally paid, labor, materials, parts, when we say we give that assistance to the urban county residents? Does that cover everything?
Sometimes it does, Councilwoman, sometimes it does not, and Community Housing Solutions has other resources
Okay,
that they add to our resources. For example, the housing plan, the home repair funds from the housing plan, they can use those dollars with our dollars to sometimes electrical upgrades beyond knob and tube are needed when there's a
Right.
furnace replacement, and they have additional funding to make that happen.
good, that's good to know, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-687, Department of Workforce Development, submitting an amendment to a contract with Strategic Resources Consulting, LLC, for outreach and communication services to develop and implement a communication and outreach plan for the period November 1st, 2019 through October 31st, 2021, to extend the time period to October 31st, 2022, to expand the scope of services, to increase the number of in-person community events effective November 1st, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Good morning, Frank Brickner from the Department of Workforce Development, looking to amend this contract to extend for 1 additional year in the amount of $100,000. The funding source is federal WIOA grant funds, and this would be the last opportunity we would be able to extend this contract. We did an RFP which allowed for this period of time. Really, the difference in this contract this year is in the past, we were really doing more outreach to both employers and job seekers. But we have a real need to bring in more job seekers into our services, and we're going to be doing more outreach events to try to bring in especially young adults into our program.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Are there questions from the board on this item? Councilwoman Baker, please.
This is, you say young job seekers, but they have to be a graduate of high school?
No, anybody is eligible to receive services in our program, anybody 18 and over.
18, and that's what I was getting
Yes.
to. So
Yes.
18 and older,
Mhm.
okay. And if they don't have their high school, there are resources that then you will,
We do. Some of our young adult programs allow for like help with attainment of GED.
right?
We have partnerships with the library system on site to do some of the GED services.
Okay, part of your communication then is that?
It is.
Okay,
Mhm.
good to know, thank you.
Sure. Additional question. Trevor, please.
Frank, do you know how many more community events you want to hold in the next calendar year?
I would have to check for Trevor and get that information. I'm not really aware.
When you have them scheduled, can you share so we can share with the council members, please?
Absolutely. Yes, we will do that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, please, Councilwoman.
Just a simple follow-up, for $100,000, typically, how many events would that be?
Well, it depends on what we're buying from them. Is it radio spots, which take away how much events you can do? Or
Okay.
I think we're more focused on events this year. The past, during COVID, there weren't a lot of in-person events, and it was mainly other type of outreach and sending out mass emails, doing other things. But, so it'll be a little different this year. I'm trying to remember in the couple of years ago, pre-COVID, it was several community events.
Okay, so this is communication and outreach plan?
Yes.
Not specifically organizing the event?
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-688, Department of Workforce Development, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Manufacturing Works in the amount not to exceed $216,546 for an adult pre-apprenticeship program in manufacturing for 15 underrepresented eligible participants for the period November 22nd, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Frank Brickner again. We're looking for approval for a new pilot, a pre-apprenticeship opportunity for 15 underserved individuals to get them into manufacturing with the goal of to get them into apprenticeships down the line. The result of this was a solicitation from the state of Ohio, Bureau of Workforce Services, who said they wanted to emphasize certain things, especially pre-apprenticeships, and manufacturing was one area. So we submitted a proposal on behalf of Manufacturing Works, and it was awarded. So we feel like this is good news. The pilot is really setting up the pre-apprenticeships. Manufacturing Works has a lot of experience doing apprenticeships, but this pre-apprenticeship is something new. So it's giving individuals some access to some remediation, some initial job training in manufacturing, job shadowing, and work experiences to get individuals employed and then on the path to apprenticeship opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Questions from the board on this item? Councilman Miller, please.
What's the difference between an apprenticeship and a pre-apprenticeship?
Sure, a pre-apprenticeship is just entry level. It's the individual's not hired yet. You're identifying the individual, getting them interested in manufacturing, giving them entry level, type of work experiences, job shadowing opportunities, and that with the goal of getting them employed, and then they can get into apprenticeships where over 4 years they get additional training that would allow them to earn good amount of income for themselves. So, they may start out a pre-apprenticeship, you get them employed entry level, maybe a machinist, and then over 4 years they could be making some significant money with additional education.
So if someone gets an actual apprenticeship, would they be an employee of the company?
These individuals initially will not be employees of the company, but the goal is to get them employed by a participating company.
So if they get to the apprenticeship level, then they would be an employee?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, additional questions? Yes, Councilwoman Baker.
So it's 200,000 for 7 months, if I'm reading this correctly,
Yes.
and for 15 people?
Yes.
It seems like a lot for 15 people.
It is. It's setting up, this is what the state wants more, and you'll see this hopefully, regionally and across that. You have to set up the pre-apprenticeship. It doesn't exist right now. So Manufacturing Work has to have the relationships with the employer, set the curriculum, get Tri-C, that will be the educational provider, to identify that. Start identifying job shadowing opportunities. So this initial will be pretty expensive, but the goal is if it's set up, if it works, it'll be much more economical down the line because you have a structure set up.
If I may.
Please. Yes.
So Manufacturing Works is saying to you that we need to start off with a higher per person rate.
Yes.
Because the next time we come back to them, we could be looking at, do you have any idea what the prolonged pre-apprenticeship program will be?
Well, I'm not sure that we will be funding this. This was just a special one-time initiative. If this is successful, then Manufacturing Works may go to the state for other type of funding to continue the fund. It's just a pilot. I don't know how much down the line that would cost as they continue to operate it.
Okay. Well, it is a WIA, right?
Yes,
Initiative, and it's paid by the federal
it
government.
is,
so-
all federal.
All right, be interesting to know how it plays out, so thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
One more question.
Councilman Miller, please.
Could you say a little bit about Manufacturing Works, who they are?
Yeah, they are a organization, a nonprofit organization that typically, I know I'll butcher because they do much more than this, but they work with manufacturing employers typically to get individuals interested in apprenticeship programs. They coordinate, if somebody's working at Odie or Voss and they want them to become more skilled, they arrange that. They work with the educational providers, a lot of the behind the scenes work to get individuals into apprenticeships, but they are more focused. They do much more than just that, but they're typically assisting employers in manufacturing to retain talent, find talent, and assist them with any of their needs.
And do they have a relationship with the manufacturing sector partnership?
They do. They've been working with Magnet, who's really the sector intermediary. So some of the individuals, for instance, who are going through the Access program, which is kind of a pre-apprenticeship program on its own, they're helping assist those individuals get employed also with some of the manufacturing relationships they have.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Baker, please.
So the 216,000 going to Manufacturing Works, do we have any participation in this program, or it funnels through us to them and we're out of it?
We are supposed to monitor and oversee it,
Okay,
but we pretty much pass through the whole award to them.
through them.
We're using our WIOA funds to monitor and oversee this program.
And how will that monitoring handle? Will they send you back a report? Will they give you results? How is that?
There will be monthly reports that they give us. I mean, we do program reviews. We talk to individuals. We do finance reviews, make sure the money's spent for its intended purpose.
You do all that?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Macular, please.
Frank, just to follow up from Councilwoman Baker's question, is the money used for an administrative cost with Manufacturing Works, or will that money go towards paying the 15 individuals some type of salary or hourly rate?
A good chunk of the money is going right to the wages for the individuals, or I think they call it kind of like a stipend or whatever, but $14 an hour. Also, money is going to Cuyahoga Community College for the training. I think less than half is going to Manufacturing Works. The bulk of it is going to education and wages.
And so, what the $14 an hour? It'll be 6 months worth of?
Yes.
Okay.
Up to 6 months.
To 6 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next
Thank
item,
you.
please.
Next item, BC 2021-689, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, and Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Mst Services Llc for licensures for multisystemic therapy services for the period July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2021, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $15,400.
Good morning, Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. This is our contract amendment with Mst Services Llc, and what they provide is our licensing services so that both the court and DCFS, who have MST teams, are able to provide the evidence-based MST services. This is funded for the court through our reclaim grant as well as through the levy for DCFS.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Questions from the board on this item? Please, Councilwoman Baker.
So I know this is a reclaim grant, but it is, again, 5 or 6 months? Is that because it is a reclaim grant?
So part of the lateness was due to the grant and all that comes along with it. Another reason that it was late is due to the vendors struggling to get the Inspector General certification completed. So they kind of went back and forth with that and struggled with that. So that was another reason why it was held up.
The time that's left is only about is it 6 months, 7 months? Is that enough time to, I mean, the request is 15,000, which doesn't sound like a lot. Is that,
It's still, that covers exactly what we need. We pay them quarterly for the license, and come July 1st of 2022, we'd be looking to contract with them again so that we could, both us and DCFS can continue providing the MST services, because in order to do that, we need the license.
if I just may?
Please.
So will that be another 5-year contract as it was from,
We typically do it 1 year at a time, due to the fact that for the court, it falls under the grant. What we may end up doing is a 2-year and only put in the 1 year's worth of dollars. But we typically have been doing it just on the 1-year term, just based upon the fact that it's under the grant for the court, at least at this point in time.
even though this originated as a 5-year?
Yes.
And there's no savings involved in going 5 years?
Unfortunately, no. Sometimes even the cost does change from year to year. It hasn't for a while. I think in the time period that we've worked with them, maybe it's gone up maybe once, at least since I've been with the court. So generally, it stays right around the same. Unfortunately, it's just something that we have to have in order to provide the service.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, any additional questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-690, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Wingspan Care Group in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for evidence-based trauma-informed treatment for child victims and witnesses of violence in connection with the Defending Childhood Initiative Project for the period October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety, and as the clerk has already read, this is for therapy treatment services for children who have been exposed to violence or have been victimized by violence. Wingspan is actually the administrative agent for Applewood and Belfair, so these services will be provided by either one of these agencies. And the fact that we're getting an RFP exemption is because both Applewood and Belfair were specifically named in our grant application for the VOCA funding. This contract is late. One, we did not get our VOCA award until October 15th, but more significantly in this particular case, because of the switch from contracting directly with Applewood and Belfair going to Wingspan, Wingspan needed some changes to the contract language, and then they struggled briefly registering for the Inspector General and getting us the insurance documentation that we required.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. Questions from the board on this item? Please, Councilwoman Baker.
It seemed like the VOCA funds were getting less and less available, but this is paid through VOCA, so you were successful in getting that.
Correct. This contract that was actually 50% less than it was last year. Last year, we did $10,000 with Applewood and $10,000 with Belfair.
Really?
Because of our VOCA cut, we could only do $10,000 for both.
Okay, I thought it was less. Thank you.
Okay, any final questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-691, Sheriff's Department, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Watch Systems LLC in the amount not to exceed $475,000 for sex offender notification mailing services for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2026, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Hi, this is Laura Sims from the Sheriff's Department. This is a contract with Watch Systems for 5 years to do the offender registration and sex offender registration and notification. This service is mandated under ORC 2950, and so that's a service that we are required to provide. In addition, the reason we're requesting the exemption for this particular service is because this agency, Watch Systems, is it's the same one that's being used by the state of Ohio, and for us to link into their system to be able to do that. I know some questions from the board. Watch Systems is the main system that works through the state of Ohio. And we could, we could put it out for bid, but the problem that we have is because offender or Watch System has the rights to the system, we would be subcontracting through somebody else who would be then getting the services from Watch Systems to provide it to us, consequently adding additional costs to that.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Questions from the board on this item? Councilman Miller? Yes.
So do they send out the required notices to the immediate neighbors of, is that what the mailing service does?
I'm sorry, send them out to whom did you say?
To the neighbors of the sex offenders to let people know that they're living in the neighborhood, is that?
I don't know that. I would have to find that out. I know that they are required to send them to the to the victim of that. I don't know that they're required to notify the neighbors. Generally, that kind of thing is done through, you go to there's a website that you can go to check registered sex offenders in your neighborhood, and that's where you will go to find that information, but I can find out if they send them to neighbors, but I don't know for sure. I don't think so, but.
So, can you tell me what services are actually provided that the $475,000 pays for?
So it's about $95,000 a year is what the cost is. And what they do is we have to register all the sex offenders into the system. So there is the registry part of that as well. And then there's also so when we register them into the system locally, it goes into the state database, which also then can go into a federal database for the registry. And then when the offender would be released from incarceration, they would, there's a change of status in that, they would notify, and or if, so the registrants are supposed to notify us if they change address, okay? So if they moved, we would then again notify the victim of that case that offender had relocated. So if there was a change of status again of the offender, there would be a notification that would go out.
And how many people do we have in the registry?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to find that out for you.
Would you find out and let me know?
Sure. I do know, I can tell you that we had a grant that actually we're working on now, a smart grant, which was to help make sure that we had personal notifications instead of just the notifications. And we've gone through the database and tried to clean it up as well. And so I can get those numbers, but I don't have them off the top of my head.
So I didn't catch that last point about the personal notifications. What's the difference?
So, well, because the Offender Watch, that's an electronic or a letter notification. For some offenders, particularly those that are the higher level offenders, what would happen is that they do personal checks to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be. So the deputies will go out to the offender's residence and check to make sure that they're actually where that they are and that they're still they're still registered and there's no change happening. And then if they found a status change, then they would make a notification based upon that.
And once a person is required to be registered, can this ever be over with and they get off the requirement, or is?
It depends. I would need to look at that further, but my understanding is it depends on what the circumstances are around it and the level of the thing. Some, I think once you're on it for good, especially for, I think it's a level 1 offender, if I'm getting that right. But it would depend on the case and how long you would have to be on there. And I don't know exactly what that is, but Again, I can find that out.
And am I correct that all states have these, and that if you move to another state, well, then the other state takes it over and you go on their registry?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, are there additional questions from the board?
If I may,
Please, Councilwoman Baker.
I think you're going to get back to us on some information, did I hear?
I need to get for you the number of registered sex offenders that we have currently, and if notifications go to neighbors.
Right, that's, the second part is what I would like to know.
Okay.
And, you know, 100,000 or 95,000 a year seems considerable for just making sure that we're updated. Can you include whatever services are involved in that 95,000 a year?
Sure.
Thanks.
But,
Yeah.
I don't know, again, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm thinking when we're talking about registered sex offenders that they're managing, we're looking at maybe 100,000. I mean, it's not an insignificant number. So I will have to get that, number to you, but it's a lot to track.
It is, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Macular. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. Chairman, real quick,
yeah.
Laura, when you're getting us the information, could you see if you can get us just how many per year are added to the registry to, if you, versus just the total number, but how many on average get added to the system? Yeah.
Oh, so, well, and those are different things then, because new offenders would be one, and changes in status would be a separate thing as well. So, but yes, new offenders annually, I can take a look at that.
Thank you.
If I may,
Please.
I'm sorry, both what?
this funding includes both the new offenders and tracking
Oh, yeah, it
relocation.
includes everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, the item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2021-692, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, recommending an award and enter into a contract with Sisters of Charity Foundation of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $460,000 for fiscal agent services and oversight of the implementation and operation of a youth drop-in center for homeless young adults ages 16 to 24 for the period November 29th, 2021 through December 31st, 2022.
Good morning, Paul Porter, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. This is a contract for fiscal agent services and oversight of getting started and then operating a youth drop-in center for homeless young adults. You might recall, it's been almost a year ago that we presented an alternative procurement that the board approved, so that we could go out and procure these services as part of kind of a consortium model. The folks that evaluated the proposals included numerous partners, not just the county. We did have representation from both the Division of Children and Family Services and then the county's Office of Homeless Services in terms of selecting the vendor. The Sisters of Charity Foundation is going to be that fiscal agent and oversight piece. At this point, it's looking like Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry is going to be the lead service provider. But again, in keeping with the model of having several partners involved, we will have multiple other agencies providing services to the youth using this center. That includes the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, or NEOC, Tri-C, Belfair, and numerous other partners. We responded to a question on Wednesday last week, but we didn't have all of the information due to some critical players, including myself, being out of the office. I was able to get some additional information this morning and identify that while this $460,000 is in this year's budget, we do have in the biennial budget for 22 and 23 $500,000 per year for this contract. Since this is coming kind of late in the year, we're looking at doing an upfront payment of the $460,000 so that the vendors can work through things like the site selection and getting the project up and running. That said, it's likely that we won't use the whole 500,000 next year, since so much of this, is coming late in the year. So I would expect for us to amend this contract at some point to extend it, the way the contract's written, we have option years built in. I anticipate that the funding might look a little different in year 2 and year 3, depending on how it's spent with starting up the project. I know that right now, the contract start date is November 29th. It's anticipated that the project could be up and running probably by the end of the first quarter next year. So again, there are costs associated with getting a program up and running. This 460,000 though is designed to be, used for the operation of the program. So I can't guarantee that it'll all get spent right away. And I think when it comes time to amend it, we would update the budget accordingly based on what's been spent and what, that should look like moving forward. Anything unspent, we would anticipate, reducing the value of year 2 accordingly, I suppose.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there questions from the board on this item? Councilwoman Baker.
Okay, so this is then just for 1 year, ending end of next year,
Correct. Yes, 1 year and approximately 1 month.
and you'll probably come back in 2023 for another 500,000, did I hear you say?
Correct. Our anticipation is that we would come back for an amendment to extend this for calendar year 23 and potentially calendar year 24 as well. Right now, if you look at the budget this way, we're doing the 460,000 out of 21's budget. Then we would have funding for year 2 in
Oh, I see what you're
22's
saying.
budget,
Okay,
and then year 3 in 2023's budget.
okay. And the youth drop-in center for homeless young adults aged 16 to 24, now 16 is underage?
Correct.
So what do you do for those kids, I guess, that are 16 and 17, under 18?
Sure.
Which is different than someone who's 18 to 24?
Absolutely. Melissa, you're the programmatic expert in this area, so I'll defer to you to answer specific questions programmatically, if that's all right.
Good morning, Melissa Starack, Director of the Office of Homeless Services. We definitely first would not turn those individuals away for assistance, so we would seek to find out who the guardianship is with, if any, and make that contact so that official releases are signed. But the main point of the drop-in center is to provide basic needs services to anyone that enters, so we still would provide what services we could within reason while working on identifying the appropriate contact to approve full engagement of services.
So it is different for those kids that are 16 and 17 versus 18 through 24?
Correct.
And if I may? it's on
Please.
here. The youth drop-in center, is that an overnight service?
No, it is not set up to be 24 hours at this point. There could be a need, of course. Our current shelter system is not set up to serve young adults, ideally, so it could be in the future, but not as of right now. We're looking at late morning open into early evening hours.
So for those that are homeless and they drop in, how do you accommodate them to make sure they have an overnight place to go if they're older than 17?
So we would treat and assist the individual the same as we would anyone else in our system. We'd first work on diversion to see if they have any family or friends that they could potentially go to. Then we would move to mediation. If there's some burned bridges or bad relationships, we try to assist in the mediation so they'd have somewhere to stay. Our shelter is always an option for them in our system if they were an adult as an option.
One final, if I may.
Sure.
So the youth drop-in center, if they just want to drop in, not really talk to anyone, just have a place that's safe and away from wherever it is that they're coming from, do you automatically register them and get them involved, or can they just come and have a place for shelter?
So this will be really transformational to our system. What we found is that the youth do want to be engaged. Our system is just not set up in such a way that they are comfortable doing so. It's not as safe of an environment as they would like. So this is going to be transformational in allowing us to have everything under one roof, a one-stop shop per se, where individuals can come in and either just be, if that's the case, but we plan to have true wraparound services wrapped around them, all encompassing in that site, so that we work to engage them and keep them out of our shelter system.
Okay, and of course, if there's drug addiction, any kind of abuse, things like that,
Yes,
Your-
there will definitely be a safety net of providers wrapped around them, from education to employment to healthcare, mental health and addiction services. That will absolutely be a key component.
It'd be interesting to see how this is.
It's
new.
exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting and new, right?
Mhm,
You don't-
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-693, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, recommending an award and entry into a contract with Joseph's Home in the amount not to exceed $267,547 for temporary housing and supportive services for medically fragile men experiencing homelessness for the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Good morning. Paul Porter, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Office of Homeless Services. This is a contract for shelter services specific to medically fragile homeless men. Joseph's Home is unique in that they have a capacity to serve homeless men with medical issues that some of the other traditional shelters throughout the county don't have. This is a contract that's been in place for several years now. We requested an alternative procurement in lieu of seeking a proposal from vendors for this, based on the fact that the city of Cleveland had done an RFP during calendar year 2020 that Joseph's Home was the only respondent to. So the approval was to enter into a contract based on the proposal they submitted and the award that the city of Cleveland had given to them. I will say that was approved back in March, so we were working with the vendor for several months to get a contract in place. The vendor held off on signing off on the contract and requested additional funding to operate a similar program, Mary's House, I believe, targeted towards homeless women. At this point, we didn't have funding in our budget this year for that program. We did encourage the vendor to apply through the Emergency Solutions Grant RFP that was issued in the fall. And the vendor ultimately did agree to sign off on this contract, but it was late. It's the same amount that it's been during prior years, and it does have a July 1 to June 30th date. And we do have the option to extend the contract by amendment if we have funds available and choose to do so.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Questions from the board? Mr. Macular.
Good morning, Paul. So Joseph's Home, this contract will run through June 30th of next year.
Correct.
And then, Mary's Home or House, when does that contract expire?
So there's not a contract for the other site, and even though we encourage them to apply for funding under the Emergency Solutions Grant process, unfortunately, the vendor did not apply for funding for that site under that process, so we don't have a contract with them for that site at this time.
So, but the operating support that we provided a while back for Mary's Home, was there a timetable of when that, we gave them 200,000 as well, right?
Sure. I can double check. That one might expire December 31st of this year. I don't have that paperwork right in front of me, and I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. Do you know off the top of your head, Melissa?
Sorry, Melissa Serac, Office of Homeless Services. We currently do not have any contracts for Mary's Home. During my tenure here, we've worked to align the procurement process with the funding that we have available. And when ESG came out, I strongly encouraged the provider to apply, knowing that we had this potential funding to provide them, and they did not submit an application in a timely manner. So we still support, from my office's standpoint, the need that we have within the community. We were just trying to get everyone into the procurement process to be followed. So to my knowledge, there is no contract that we have with Mary's Home right now.
So just to follow up on that, Mr. Chairman, is there, even though they didn't apply, right, we know there's the need out there, right, we wouldn't have given them initial funding for Mary's Home. Is there a plan moving forward to potentially provide operating support, or at this point, are we making a decision that we're only going to fund Joseph's Home?
from a contractual perspective, I'd like to take a look at what that contract was and when it was, because I think between the two of us, we don't have enough information on hand. And if it's something that predates Melissa's tenure, then my thinking on it is it's probably already expired. I think it probably merits further discussion, but Melissa's point about making sure as much as possible that vendors go through the competitive procurement process, I think is the same thing I would emphasize from, the lens of what we tell all of our HHS vendors as much as they can. Do you have anything to add?
I would just add that if funding permits, we would strongly encourage, as we did this past year, for them to be a part of the ESG application. That tends to be our master contract, kind of, in quotes, and then we'd be able to support them. So I would like to support them going forward if the budget permits.
Do we know why they didn't submit a proposal for?
They did not submit a timely
Oh, so they ended
proposal.
up submitting something, but it was just late?
They were beyond the deadline of acceptance, yes.
I mean, I have to imagine very limited entities that provide medical care directly
Correct.
to homeless individuals. So I understand the competitive process, but I thought it was a big step when we did fund Mary's Home initially, so I think we should have a further discussion. I know that was
Absolutely.
important to a lot of the council members.
Absolutely.
Okay, any additional questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. The next item is exemptions.
Yeah, moving on to exemptions, the next item will be read into the record with an amended funding source. Item BC 2021-694, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to SMG Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $379,328 for lease of space at Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland and the Global Center for Health Innovation, located at 1 St. Clair Avenue Northeast, Cleveland, for jury duty operations for the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas for the period August 28, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. And the funding source is general fund to be considered for federal reimbursement.
Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This is just an agreement with the Huntington Convention Center to use the convention center for court operation space. If you're aware, previously in the height of COVID, the space was used to hold court proceedings, especially for more of the high-profile court cases. They're just going to use it again if needed during this recent outbreak and variants that are going on.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Are there questions from the board on this item? Yes, Councilwoman Baker.
Make sure I'm on the right one here. This is ending next month, and it started in August.
It is ending next month. The hope is if we do need it, again, coming next year, we will come before the board again. What ends it in December 31st is really funding issues. We don't know what funding will be available come January 1. There still may be a need for it. We just don't have funding available yet. So it does end December 31st.
And given that this is an ongoing operation, because we've been there since in 2020,
Yes.
why is it that it's coming so late, that we are there, we're operating, we know that it was going to be ending?
So
Why are we coming with 1 month left?
previously, the Department of Public Works was the one that actually put the agreements out there each month, but there was a bit of a miscommunication between the courts and us, which caused it to be late.
Okay, so if we continue, which in your estimation, do you think we will be continuing January of next year?
I'm not aware of it. We did want to extend it to next year, but because there is no funding, we couldn't extend it out. My preference was to come before you with something a little bit longer because of the variants that are out there and the constant need it has had during the COVID outbreak and the pandemic. But there's no way to come before you without funding for it.
Finally, if I may, do
Please.
you anticipate that you will be coming for more funding
There is a
before
potential.
the end of this year?
No, it will actually be next year.
So automatically, it's going to be late.
It will be, based on the need for funding.
And then finally, the CARES and the ARPA funding I read that may or may not be used. It was used up till now, so would it be used?
We will put that request before the administration, and if approved, it will be used. But this funding, initial funding, isn't considered ARPA or CARES at this point.
Is there a reason why you didn't submit the CARES or ARPA funding back in August?
Well, I didn't know that they had continued the operation because there was some miscommunication, but we did submit it for consideration for ARPA. We just have not gotten a confirmation.
If I can add too, there's
Yeah.
been no ARPA money appropriated yet.
That's true.
So we haven't, nothing's appropriated for them to utilize, so that's why general fund would have to go, and then if we can fit it into some of those buckets, the buckets are a little different, we'll certainly consider it, but there's, as you can imagine, more requests than dollars, so.
Well, I guess, Mike, given we know that $380,000 is needed and it fits within the ARPA, wouldn't we automatically just deduct ARPA money from it?
Well, once
Because-
again, we have nothing appropriated, and for me to appropriate it, obviously I gotta come before council with a plan, and I think, we gotta lay all that plan out, and we're still working on that. Now that the budget's done, we've been having meetings, and that's what our goal is to get it, come before you hopefully in early January with an expenditure request for appropriation. And then certainly, if this is eligible, I'm not saying it is or isn't, because once again, those are those different buckets. It's not as free as the CARES money was, as long as it fits in one of those buckets. Remember, revenue loss is a big topic, but we already have more requests for revenue loss than we have revenue loss. So we gotta find the right bucket to put that in.
Okay, I guess I'm just asking that because we know that in prior time it was covered, and we are now asking for it to come out of general fund, would this be an automatic in the bucket ask to be reimbursed because we know that we approved it for general fund when it could be ARPA dollars? I'm just saying, once we approve it, is it just done, or will this automatically be considered?
Well, it'll be considered, once again, that's why we, Sharon amended it to be evaluated for federal reimbursement, which would be the ARPA. It doesn't mean it's gonna go in there. We just need to,
Okay,
there's a lot of requests, and certainly if there's money available, we'll try and fit it in there.
yeah,
But right now, we have more requests than dollars.
but those requests, the money's not spent yet.
Nothing's been
Right.
spent, yeah, nothing's
But
been
this money
appropriated.
is being spent.
Which
that's
in
all.
order to do it, they have to use general fund,
I
because
get
we have
that.
nothing else appropriated to use, yeah.
Right.
We'll be considering it, I mean, hopefully working with, Matt, our Ruby, he's setting up codes that we can run and scan to see those eligible items, and come back and consider them.
I guess just for clarification, those dollars that are coming out of general fund already that could be ARPA qualifying would take precedent over any other requests that may come that we haven't put in general fund yet.
I would
that's all.
say no, because once again, this has to get done. This is the other thing, I mean, what's the future? I have questions on this too. What's the future? Are we gonna continue to use this? I mean, we have courthouses, we have courtrooms now.
Yeah.
There needs to be a game plan, in my opinion. What is the long-term impact of this center? And secondly, I mean, I'm sure they got, conventions coming up pretty soon too. I don't know.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
interesting.
Mr. Mackler, yeah?
Woman, just to follow up on your questioning,
Yeah.
the court would like to extend beyond December 31st.
Okay,
So they've requested that. It's, as Mr. Chairman has said, it's an issue or concern about funding and even available space in the Global Center, depending on what conventions are going on. They have now moved to the fourth floor as well, so they've taken on a little bit more space over there. And the convention center has been able to handle there's been a couple weekends where they've had to take everything down because of events, but I think the convention center and SMG would like to probably see an extension as well,
okay.
but the courts have made a request to extend it further.
I guess for the 379,000, which ends at the end of this year, which is what the request is in front of us, nothing to do with next year.
No.
I just
no.
wanted to know if this takes priority in the ARPA money once we release the ARPA money and determine, or does it just continue to stay where we put it in general fund if it qualifies for ARPA?
And I can't answer that question right now because we have much more requests that are viable requests in addition. So right now it's general fund, and certainly if we have a shortfall in ARPA or we don't, well, we can transfer it and utilize it. We're not going to let any ARPA money go,
Right,
but for right now, I can't commit to that.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're on the same page, it's just timing, I guess. All right. Additional, Mr. Mackler?
Just to comment, Mr. I sit on the Convention Center Board, but I don't see a conflict with me voting on it. I'm on there because I'm a county representative.
If I understand it correctly, this isn't with the board, this is with the convention center. I mean, I don't,
SNG, right, okay. Thanks,
so
Jim.
you're fine.
Okay. Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Mr. Mackler. Seconded by Mr. Mackler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2021-695, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Case Western Reserve University in the amount not to exceed $1,500,000 for fiscal agent and program operator services for the first year Cleveland initiative to reduce the infant mortality rates in Cuyahoga County for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024.
Good morning, Paul Porter, Health and Human Services on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. We're submitting an RFP exemption for a contract that's going to go before council for operation of the first year Cleveland initiative by Case Western. Previously, this had been a 1-year agreement that most recently we did a 2-year amendment to extend it. There were problems with the way paperwork had been processed in the past because it was a joint agreement that was actually done as an MOU instead of a contractual agreement, and it included the city of Cleveland as a partner on the agreement. Due to delays with getting things through their approval process and then through our approval process, we opted to do kind of a standalone agreement between us and Case for the county's portion of the funding, and then to avoid having to come back multiple times on it, the county's committing to 3 years of funding based on the current level of funding that we have, which is $500,000 a year for this program. So it will continue to be $500,000 a year for 22, 23, and 24. The contract does allow the option that if first year Cleveland, if their board decides to switch to a different program operator instead of Case, the contract allows for the option to switch operators, and then any unexpended funds at that point would switch to a new operator. Again, that's only if the first year Cleveland organization opts to switch to a new fiscal agent and program operator. I know that was part of the discussion with going with a longer term agreement. The board for first year Cleveland wanted to have kind of that in there as a safety net for themselves.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there questions from the board on this item? Yes, Councilman Baker.
So this program has been put in place with the initial MOU since 2016.
Correct.
So we have a pretty good track record. Is the program changed or evolved since 2016? Do we have any kind of reporting as to how we've done with this program?
Sure, I can try and get some detailed reporting. I know that that's part of the requirement that we have for Case, that they have to report on an annual basis about the program. So I can try and get the latest copy of that for you. I can't speak extemporaneously on their performance. I do know that, you know, just part of the discussion with like, do we continue? Do we keep the same funding level? our representatives from the county are satisfied with the performance of Case Western as a vendor. So I would imagine that the data would back up that opinion and wanting to move forward to work with them. But I'll get a hold of the most recent evaluation and have it sent your way.
Yeah, if I may, I know
Please.
there's been a lot of interest in reducing the infant mortality rates. And as I said, this started in 2016. I just wondered if there was increased success in this program. Is 500,000 what we have typically given each year? Is that?
So 500,000 has been the typical contribution from the county since the inception of the program. Like I said, the city of Cleveland also contributes to the program.
Right.
It'll just be done with a separate agreement between Cleveland and Case moving forward. I can't tell you specific statistics on, have the numbers gone down, up, stayed the same?
Can you get that, though?
Yes, absolutely. That'll be part of what I provide afterwards.
It'd be interesting to see the progress since 2016
Certainly.
to 2021 and going through 2024.
Yes.
What has done, what they hope to achieve.
Absolutely. So I'll send that. I anticipate I can probably send over the data through 2020. I don't anticipate we would have 2021 data yet until we go over into the new year.
Okay, and perhaps if they have a goal or mission for the next 3 years?
Certainly,
what
if
they-
there's any target established, I'll send that along as well.
I appreciate it, thanks.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any final questions in this item? Mr. Mackler, please.
Mr. Chair, just a comment. I have a family member that works at Case. I'm just going to recuse myself.
Okay, noted. At this time, then, I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we have one abstention. Okay, thank you. Item approved. Moving on.
Moving on to the consent agenda, items BC 2021-696 through 698.
Okay, board members, please take a look at the items. Let me know if you have any questions. Mr. Mackler, please.
Mr. Chair, on the fire department grants, a couple are state homeland security grants except for the city of Berea. Should that be homeland security grant, or was that an actual general fund grant that we gave to
Great
city
line.
of Berea?
Great minds think alike. Okay.
Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. Okay, so the two that are marked for State Homeland, that was for a 24-hour exercise that was held for the urban search and rescue teams. The other one for the city of Berea, you may recall back in the spring I came and asked for an alternate procurement to reimburse communities that provided instructors to do the rescue task force training, and that was going to be paid for with the general fund dollars. That's what the Berea reimbursement for is for they actually had a police officer and a firefighter who assisted with that training.
Beth, would there be other departments getting reimbursed, or is this the only one, general fund?
As far as the RTF goes, I want to say 5 communities that have submitted reimbursement for about $25,000. If you just go 1, 2, 3. It was 4 communities. Berea was police and fire. That's how I'm coming up with the 5. And their total requests were $25,000. And you approved $50,000 for that initiative.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there?
If I could just
yeah,
point
please.
out too, is that goal was to do 120 students. And so far, they're only partially through the first year, and they've already trained 84.
Good. Are there any additional questions on today's consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none, then I will make a motion to approve today's consent agenda items as noted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is approved. Moving on to other business.
We have one time-sensitive mission-critical item, BC 2021-699, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, recommending awards to various providers, each in the amount not to exceed $24,999.99 for out-of-home care services for various time periods listed below, with Daybreak Incorporated, Hiddle House, Safeway, Safe House Ministries Incorporated, and Healing Pathways Transitional Homes Incorporated.
Good afternoon, Paul Porter, Health and Human Services on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. These are multiple mission-critical items that cover placement of hard-to-place youth who were in the DCFS building. These cover youth that were in the building during the months of August and September, and we weren't able to place them using our existing out-of-home care master agreement, which has over 50 vendors at this point. It is anticipated, particularly since these go back a couple of months, that we will have to amend the agreement that expires December 31st of this year to add vendors to that master agreement so that we can pay out invoices that may exceed the $24,999. Additionally, all of these placements are coming after the RFP closed for the out-of-home care contract that's going to start January 1 of next year. We're in the process of getting that contract signed and the award before council. At this point, it would delay getting approval of that to add vendors right now. So we may be looking at doing amendments to the expiring contract as well as to the new contract to add these vendors if the youth remain placed there. There is a gap in the Daybreak placement. The date of service 8/24, the youth was not at the facility that date. That's why it's specified that there's that gap in coverage, so the county doesn't have to pay for that specific date.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there questions on this item from the board? Seeing none, then, I will make a motion to approve the item. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Macular. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Okay, moving on.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if
Oh.
we may return to item BC 2021-686, Department of Development.
680.
Councilman Miller had asked for confirmation on the number of proposals submitted. There were in fact 2 proposals submitted under that RFP.
There were 2. Okay.
And who is the other submitter?
CHN Housing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. At this time, is there additional public comment?
No public comment?
That's fantastic. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.